Former Brazilian President Luis Inácio Lula da Silva continues to lead in voting intentions for the October presidential election. The British Prime Minister announced his resignation as leader of the Conservative Party. A summit was held in Rwanda between Rwandan President Paul Kagame, Congolese President Félix Tshisekedi, and Angolan President João Lourenço, who is mediating the talks amid an upsurge in violence in eastern DRC. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the TeleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. Former Brazilian President Luis Inácio Lula da Silva continues to lead in voting intentions for the October presidential election. Further data's poll released Wednesday morning shows stability in the electoral scenario, with former President Lula da Silva leading the voting intention with 44% of support. On the other hand, the poll results indicate that current President Jair Bolsonaro has 36% support among those surveyed. Likewise, the study also revealed that the former president has a big advantage over Bolsonaro among women, young people, and the low-income population. In Brazil, the Human Rights and Minorities Commission of the House of Representatives will debate the case of activist and Australian journalist Julian Assange. For Orlando Silva, president of the commission and author of the request that gave rise to the public hearing, Assange revealed confidential data showing serious human rights violations. The hearing on Assange, who has been detained for 12 years and is about to be extradited to the United States, will be transmitted virtually and will be attended by the journalist's family members. In Venezuela, the Attorney General's office confirms that the assassination and disappearance of revolutionary leader Carlos Lanz was ordered by his wife, Maggie Kumare. The chief public prosecutor, Tarek William Saab, confirmed the apprehension of 13 people charged with the kidnapping and murder of the Venezuelan teacher. During the press conference, the prosecutor pointed out that Glenn Castellanos admitted having participated in the murder by order of the revolutionary leader's wife.
Glenn Castellanos admits in his confession that he himself participated in the murder of Carlos Lanz by direct order of Maggie Kumare. Let's not forget to identify the figure.
In addition, the prosecutor confirmed that at least 13 people have been apprehended for their involvement in the kidnapping and murder of Professor Carlos Lanz.
In this sense, I could summarize that at this moment we have, let's put it this way, the detention of 13 people, some of them as suspects and others as defendants, 13 people, for their involvement in the kidnapping and subsequent murder of Professor Carlos Lanz.
President Nicolas Maduro held a high-level meeting with the management team of the Development Bank of Latin America. The group of officials from the multilateral financial institution was headed by the bank's executive president, Sergio Díaz-Granados. The CAF's mission is to promote sustainable development and regional integration in Latin America through the financing of the public and private sector projects, the provision of technical cooperation, and other specialized services. Its main activities are acting as a financial intermediary and financing the development of the productive infrastructure, among others. Also Wednesday, the Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro regretted the death of OPEC Secretary General Mohamed Barkindo. On his official Twitter account, the Venezuelan president expressed his deepest regret for the irreparable physical departure of Mohamed Barkindo and described him as an extraordinary human being, a leader who knew how to bring OPEC to a safe port. Also, President Maduro sent his salute to Barkindo's family and to the people of Nigeria. In Chile, the campaign for the constitutional referendum began after the delivery of the project for a new constitution. Chilean citizens will have the opportunity next September 4th to choose whether to approve or reject a new Magna Carta in the country. According to the Chilean Electoral Service survey, political parties, civil organizations, and parliamentarians will have 3 days to register for their constitutional referendum campaign. According to the electoral body, for the first time in the nation's history, inmates will be allowed to vote. The campaign begins after a year of work by the Constitutional Convention, which delivered the proposal for a new constitution to the former National Congress on Monday. And in Mexico, with the creation of 60,000 jobs in June, the number reaches 893,000 in the last 12 months. In the meantime, the average contribution wage grew at an annual rate of 11.1%, implying the highest variation in the last 20 years, according to the Mexican Social Security Institute, as reported last Tuesday. This annual job creation in June is the highest for comparable periods since records have been kept. As for permanent positions, the report explained that it reached 973,998 in the same period, making it the largest annual increase in history for the month of June. The economic sectors with the highest employment growth are transport and communication with 12.6%, construction 5.5%, and commerce 5.3%. In El Salvador, the Congress approved a decree to declare the country in a state of emergency in order to deal with the effects of the rains. The decree for a 15-day period was approved with the votes of 65 of the 84 deputies of the unicameral Congress. The legislators of the opposition political parties did not support it. The approval of the same was given after the country once again suffered floods, overflowing rivers, and landslides as a result of tropical wave on Tuesday, July 5th. This situation resulted in the death of one person, being the third death caused by rains in less than 8 days. Meanwhile, classes are still suspended throughout the country and at all levels, as many institutions were damaged by the rain. We'll take a short break now. Join us again after this. Welcome back from the South. Systematic violence continues in Colombia this Wednesday. A new massacre was registered in the department of Caqueta. This is the 52nd so far in 2022. According to the Institute for Studies for Development and Peace, 3 men were murdered, including Michael Andres Lozano Rojas, a native of El Pau Hill, who was the signer of the peace agreement, who was in the process of reincorporation. The man was killed in the middle of a massacre committed in Union Penella, municipality of de la Montañita, Caqueta. This demonstrates the risk that the signatories of the peace agreements and their families continue to run because they do not have the necessary security guarantees for their lives. In Colombia, Senator Iván Cepeda alerted President-elect Gustavo Petro to the need of a program that guarantees the lives of former social leaders and former combatants in favor of peace in the territories.
Unlike the homicidal and contemplative attitude that this government of President Duque has had toward the systematic elimination of social leaders and ex-combatants, the next government will generate a plan to effectively protect the lives of those who defend peace in the territories. It is necessary to put into practice all the recommendations that were formulated, among those of the National Security Commission of Security Guarantees, the protocols that were elaborated, and also to guarantee a staggered and combined presence of national and international human rights organizations, as well as a strong presence of the state, not only military, to guarantee the lives of those who have been ruthlessly assassinated in the middle of the impunity and negligence of the state.
Panama teachers' unions remain in the streets in rejection of the high cost of living and to demand a higher budget for the sector. Representatives of various educators' unions grouped in the so-called Pueblo Unido por la Vida alliance met in a National Assembly at the University of Panama to define actions and announce a national strike of 72 hours, extendable for this Thursday. In this sense, the unions asked for the support of parents, remarking that they will not be attending to students on the campuses. In this regard, representatives stated that the protest actions will not stop until the authorities give answers to the population. British Prime Minister Boris Johnson announced on Thursday his resignation as leader of the Conservative Party amid a crisis in his government and the resignation of more than 50 cabinet ministers. Johnson will remain as head of government until his successor is named. The Prime Minister has rejected the idea of submitting his resignation on Wednesday in the control session of the House of Commons, in which both opposition parties and some Conservative MPs demanded him to resign. Boris Johnson became the British head of government with the most ministerial resignations in 48 hours after the departure of more than 50 government officials, including several ministers as well as MPs from his party and other mid-ranking officials. On Wednesday, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov paid official visit to Vietnam. Earlier in his visit to the Asian country, Communist Party General Secretary Nguyen Phu Trong and Russian Foreign Minister stressed the importance for the two countries to strengthen their comprehensive strategic partnership. The leader told the visitor about the important achievements made by the Vietnamese people during the process of bilateral renewal. Sergei Lavrov, for his part, praised Vietnam's political position and leading role and reiterated that Russia attaches importance to the strategic partnership with Vietnam.
Vietnam is a key important partner of ours in the framework of ASEAN, in the context of what is happening now in the Asia-Europe region. Our relationship, as said by my dear friend here, is based on our common history and the fight for justice.
In the same context, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov paid his respects in Hanoi to Vietnam's revolutionary leader Ho Chi Minh by laying a wreath at his mausoleum. His trip comes as Russia and Vietnam mark 10 years since they expanded their relationship to a comprehensive strategic partnership. Russia was a close supporter of Hanoi's government during the Vietnam's war against the capitalist South and its American and other Western allies. Later in the week, Lavrov attended a meeting in Indonesia of foreign ministers from the group of 20 leading rich and developing countries. The government of France confirmed its intention to renationalize the electricity company Électricité de France. The French Prime Minister Elisabeth Borne indicated the state's intention is to own 100% of the electricity company's capital to reinforce its capacity and relaunch nuclear energy projects. The announcement comes as the electricity group is facing an economic crisis as well as failures in the construction of new infrastructure. The French state owns almost 84% of EDF's shares. 1% belongs to the workers and the remaining 15% are institutional and individual shares. Parallel to this, railway workers joined a strike by airline and energy sector workers to demand higher wages amid an economic crisis in the country. French inflation reached a record high of 6.5% per year in June, driven by a rise in food and energy prices. The French National Railroad Company SNCF reported that the demonstration caused the cancellation of almost a third of intercity and regional train services. We have more news coming up after a final short break, so don't go away. Welcome back to From the South. A summit was held in Rwanda between Rwandan President Paul Kagame, Congolese President Felix Tshisekedi, and Angolan President Joao Lourenço, who is mediating the talks amid an upsurge in violence in eastern DRC. The Democratic Republic of the Congo and Rwanda have agreed to the de-escalation process following weeks of rising tensions over rebel fighting in eastern DRC, the Congolese presidency said after mediated talks. But the talks mediator, Angolan President João Lourenço, went further, announcing a ceasefire. Violence has flared between the Congolese army and the M23 rebels and is ongoing. The DRC has repeatedly accused Rwanda of backing the M23, a charge the small Central African country always denied.
I really hope and expect this process to bring about an immediate ceasefire and the withdrawal of this M23 group, while obviously waiting for the process to be set in motion, the roadmap that will lead to a process of peace, stability and confidence.
The heads of the Economic Community of West African States met with Burkina Faso's military board to assess efforts to secure guarantees for restoring civilian rule. The Minister of Foreign Affairs of Burkina Faso said that a two-year timeline towards civilian rule agreed with ECOWAS was proposed by the West African countries' military board and not imposed by the regional bloc. Visiting Burkina Faso's capital for the second time in a month, ECOWAS mediator Mahamadou Issoufou had praised board leader Lieutenant Colonel Paul-Henri Sandaogo Damiba and his government for their openness to dialogue.
The 24 months from July was a proposal of the government of Burkina Faso. It was never a dictate, as some are saying on the internet. It was freely proposed by Burkina Faso in order to be in phase with the notion of acceptability that ECOWAS asked us in terms of transition time and in terms of the content of the timetable that we had to propose.
22 migrants, including 3 children, all from Mali, died in a shipwreck off the coast of Libya. After 9 days at sea in a dinghy, 61 survivors, mostly from Mali, were rescued by Libyan coast guards and brought to shore. Since the beginning of the year, over 6,340 migrants were intercepted and returned to Libya. At least 129 people died attempting the crossing, and 459 are missing and presumed dead. The chaos that followed the fall of Muammar Gaddafi's government in 2011 has made Libya a preferred route for tens of thousands of migrants from sub-Saharan Africa, Arab countries, and South Asia seeking to reach Europe via the Italian coast, some 300 kilometers from the Libyan coast. Several thousands of them are stranded in Libya, often in deplorable conditions. In Nigeria, authorities recaptured escaped inmates and transported them back to Kuje prison after suspected Boko Haram gunmen using guns and explosives blasted their way in, freeing dozens of their comrades and hundreds of other inmates. According to local authorities, close to 600 inmates were recaptured by Wednesday evening, while less than 100 were still on the run, Nigeria's Correctional Service spokesman Abu Kabar Umar said. President Muhammadu Buhari visited the prison, where the burned-out workers of a bus and cars marked the scene of the attack, and yellow police tape was stretched across a Detroit section of the prison perimeter. Boko Haram is one of the armed groups involved in Nigeria's grinding 13-year conflict in the country's northeast. Fuel prices soared in Ethiopia on Wednesday after the government cut subsidies, exacerbating economic hardship for the population, which is already struggling with high inflation. There were long queues at gas stations in the capital, Addis Ababa, and drivers reported fuel shortages as they tried to fill up their tanks. Gasoline prices have shot up by 30%, while the federal government, which had already raised prices in May, plans to gradually lift fuel subsidies, according to the Addis Fortune business newspaper. For this part, the Ministry of Commerce said the cost of fuel for Ethiopian consumers should be almost double if calculated at current world prices. Fuel, food, and other commodity prices have soared around the world due to the conflict in Ukraine, affecting vulnerable countries in Africa and elsewhere. South Africa is once again experiencing massive blackouts across the country, scheduled on a rotating basis as the only solution to avoid the total collapse of the country's deficient power grid. A new round of power cuts which has hit the country hard with the sixth phase of grid disconnection has led some quarters to again call for the separation and privatization of the country's power utility Eskom. The Congress of South African Trade Unions opposes calls for the unbundling and privatization of the state-owned power utility, saying they are misplaced and pointless, while agreeing that the deterioration of the company poses a great risk to our economy. Ideological fantasies of privatizations will not solve the energy crisis. TeleSUR English continues to grow. Its signal now reaches Europe. You can order from your cable dealer or tune it yourself. These parameters that you see on screen are in place since July 1st. Quite soon further changes will be implemented for the signals in the Middle East and Africa. Now more than ever, the world connects to us and our stories are heard in other faraway nations. This news multi-platform will continue providing truthful content to oppose the hegemonic media's narrative and unfaithfulness to our audience. We have come to the end of this news brief. Remember, you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. You can also join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Telegram. For TeleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.